What's going on, people? Hope you're doing good. Welcome to my first time watching of January 2025. Let's get straight into it. I kicked off the year with a double cinema day, and the first film I saw was We Live in Time. And this film was good. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. I wasn't a fan of the non-linear storytelling. If they wanted to do that, they should have done something like Challengers, where the next scene makes sense in terms of the story of what happened in the previous scene. With this, just random flashbacks and flash forwards come out of nowhere with no connectivity. But I did still enjoy this movie, and it's mainly thanks to the leads. Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield are absolutely fantastic in this film. They have amazing chemistry. The characters have flaws, but they are all likeable. You do care about this family and their situation. It does have a sad ending. There are some really heartbreaking moments, but it was a fun time. It was an emotional ride, and I can see why people would love this one. And then I watched Nosferatu. This film was an absolute banger, another W for Robert Eggers. This is probably his most simple story. I mean, it is basically just Bram Stoker's Dracula all over again. But it works, and Robert Eggers brings his signature style to the film absolutely flawlessly. The costume design, the way that the world looked, the acting as well was absolutely fantastic, especially from Lily Rose Depp. This was an absolute blast at the cinema. I had a great time with this one. If you love horror, if you love Robert Eggers, please check this one out. And next is a series of 4 movies. Lethal Weapon, Lethal Weapon 2, Lethal Weapon 3, and Lethal Weapon 4. I enjoyed the first Lethal Weapon. I didn't like the action. I thought it was edited really poorly, and I couldn't see some of the things happening in the dark, and the ADR was really bad at times. But I still had a fun time with it, and that's mainly thanks to Mel Gibson and Danny Glover having amazing chemistry. These two characters are so lovable. I can listen to them banter all day. This was honestly just a fun film, very simple action movie with the buddy cop aspect in there. I can see why people love this one. Lethal Weapon 2 though, improves on everything that I loved and didn't love about the first film. The action is better, lo and behold you can actually see what's happening. The ADR is still a bit but it's not as bad. The jokes are funnier, the interactions are better, it has one of the best lines after the kill, and it introduced Joe Pesci, who's great in anything. So yeah, Lethal Weapon 2 was easily my favourite. And then Lethal Weapon 3, I found myself liking more than others. This is easily where the comedy side comes front and centre, but I really liked that. I found most of the jokes really funny, and they added in some really quirky new aspects and personalities to the main characters. This easily has the worst villain in the franchise. He's not threatening, I don't care about what he's doing. The final battle is pretty cool with him, but that's about it. But the new additions to the film really do help it, like Renee Russo as Lorna, who eventually becomes Riggs' girlfriend. I really liked her. Those two have really great chemistry. You can see why those two characters really like each other. Honestly, I had a blast with Lethal Weapon 3. It's one of my favourites. And then Lethal Weapon 4, easily the worst, but still a nice conclusion to the franchise. My biggest issue is that the villain is bad, and they waste Jet Li. That's a cardinal sin on your movie right there. The humour just feels like it's padding out time, and the movie is longer than it needs to be. It's over 2 hours, this one, and it drags at times. But the action really did make up for it, especially that final battle, and that ending scene was really cute. And honestly, I don't think we need a Lethal Weapon 5. I know they're planning on doing it, but after how this film ended, maybe we don't need to do it. Please don't. And then I watched Nobody. Yes, I have never seen this film until now, but I really did like it. Bob Odenkirk absolutely killed it in the role. It has some really great action scenes, especially that final battle. It's your simple old man assassin. It's basically older man John Wick. But it really does work. I had a blast with this one. I'm really excited for the sequel. If you love action movies, you'll definitely get a kick out of this one. And then I watched The Real Pain. This was a great realistic look into grief and how people can cope with it. I really did connect with the characters. There's nothing much in terms of a story. It is basically just people walking around Poland, learning about Jewish history. But it's interesting, and it taught me things that I didn't know before. And there were some really sad and tragic moments in this film that really tug on your heartstrings. It has one of the best final shots in a film I've seen in a while. If you haven't seen A Real Pain, do yourself a favour, give it a watch. It's a nice quick 90-minute film, but it does so much in that runtime and sends you on an emotional journey. And then we got Mr. Crockett. This is a film I heard about through Cody Leach, a YouTuber who I like. He said it was pretty good, and I did like the idea of it. And I thought I'd watch it one night, and I had a blast with it. This movie's not reinventing the wheel or anything, and it does have some pretty bad performances, and it does have that straight to streaming look. But the guy who played Mr. Crockett was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was really fun and menacing at the same time. The scares are not that great, but it's self-aware enough that you're not really bothered by that. I did like the overall aesthetic of the film, how it's very analogy, and I did like the practical sets. Honestly, I had a blast with Mr. Crockett. It's nothing special. As I said, it's not reinventing the wheel or anything, but it's a good, simple slasher with a good little message behind it. And they do set it up for more films, and honestly, I'm down for it if they want to do more. And then we got Clear and Present Danger. This is a film I saw on TV, and I was like, oh, Harrison Ford, Jack Ryan film. Go on then, this should be fun. This movie's just fine. I mean, it's pretty boring in many parts. It has the standard American government spy sort of plot. Jack Ryan's likeable, Harrison Ford is great in any role, and Willem Dafoe is great in this as well. I did like the action. While it was sparse, it was good. I just didn't find myself engaging with this movie much apart from those action scenes though. And then we got Spring Breakers. I like watching these films that are very divisive on like Letterboxd and Rotten Tomatoes. Some people think it's a masterpiece, some people think it's terrible. And I didn't exactly like this film. Visually, I thought it was brilliant. The acting was all great, especially from James Franco, absolutely hamming it up. Selena Gomez, while she's not in it much, really good in this as well. And I do get what this movie was trying to do. And it's a movie that I respect more than I like. But I just did not get into the way that they sent across the messages. It really felt like the director wanted to be more artsy than he needed to. For example, random bits of dialogue are repeated for no reason. I just did not get those sort of things. Visually, as I said, this film was beautiful. But on a story perspective, while I understand what it was trying to do, I just did not like the way that it did it. And then I watched The Devil Wears Prada. And this film was a 10 out of 10 movie. Anne Hathaway is great in this as always, but Meryl Streep, easily the standout here, very dominant, has a presence in every scene that she's in. She absolutely kills it in the role, and I really did like the simple message that you can quit your job whenever you need to, because sometimes it gets too much and messes with your personal life. Very simple message, told in a really great way, mixed that in with themes of class and diversity and how the rich look down on poorer people. I honestly had a great time with The Devil Wears Prada. Not too sure how I feel about a sequel that's in development, but we shall see. Great film, give it a watch if you haven't. And then we got Wolfman, which I'm not going to talk about much because I recently reviewed it. But yeah, needless to say, I didn't really like this film. The whole abuse becomes the abuser message. It's already ruined through the second scene of this movie. Cliche characters. The blood and gore effects were really good, I'll give the film that. Way too dark as well visually. You couldn't see what was going on half the time. The scares were lame. They were very cliche. I did not really have a good time with Wolfman at all. Then I watched 28 Days Later. Technically this isn't the first time watch. I have watched it before, but it was years ago and I don't remember anything about it. So I rewatched it and I must say this film was absolutely brilliant. The cheap look of this movie really did add to the gloomy tone of the world. I really did like the characters and their chemistry. They have some really good interactions in that whole road trip sequence. The final act is a bloody brutal, really satisfying ending. And I really just did like loads of the scenes in this film. They're really tense. It's a terrifying film. I did have my issues towards the end in the third act with the villains, but that's only a small issue. I really did like 28 Days Later. And then I watched Present. Not going to say much about this film because I recently reviewed it, but go into this film blind, only watch the trailer if you need to. This film was not what I expected, but I thought this was a really great twist on the haunted house subgenre. It's also brilliantly directed, has some brilliant performances. Please do go and check this one out when you can. And then I watched Battleship Potemkin, or Potemkin. I probably pronounced that wrong, but anyway, yeah, I thought this film was just kind of mid. It's one of those films that I respect. It is very influential for its montage editing. I had to watch this for uni and we did have to analyse that. But I just didn't really engage with this. I did like the step sequence, that was really well done. But I don't know, it just didn't really grab me. As I said, I respect it, but not really something I'll be watching all the time. And finally, we have Flight Risk. And this movie was a big bag of poop. This movie was absolutely ridiculous. I like small scale thrillers. I like thrillers inside enclosed spaces. One in an airplane high up in the air, directed by Mel Gibson. That's a recipe for a good movie. But this movie had so many plot holes, conveniences, inconsistencies, and things that just did not make any sense. The only thing that I liked was Mark Wahlberg. He looks absolutely ridiculous with that bowl cut, but he was kind of creepy for the most part with the things that he says and how he said it. But other than that, this movie is just kind of boring. It's 90 minutes and it drags. It looks terrible, the CGI especially. Oh my god. Look absolutely terrible. Do not watch Flight Risk. It feels like one of those movies that you'd find in the bargain bin at Tesco, not on the big screen. And that is it. That is all the movies I watched for the first time in January. Let me know what you watched for the first time in January as well. And do you agree with my opinions on these films? But apart from that, have a good day guys, and see you later.